Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Seattle Seahawks are hitting the reset button, and they're doing it with Sam Darnold. Also, legal tampering brought on a flurry of moves, including a new signal caller for the Jets. And we're really going to do this with the MVP in the NBA again, aren't we?
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Seattle Seahawks did a little spring cleaning over the last couple days. Old quarterback out, young quarterback in, medium old receiver out, but certainly expensive, and TBD on the rest here. Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks joins me now. And Corbin, when the Geno Smith trade was made, and then the DK Metcalf trade followed shortly thereafter, it seemed like this was a team rebuilding. And then they signed Sam Darnold, which is a tongue twister, for 3 years, $100 million. So make sense of this rebuild, this retool over the last couple days.
Well, John Schneider would tell you that it's not a rebuild, and spending that kind of money on Sam Darnold suggests that it's not. Seattle has a defense that's now going to have pretty much every starter back from the group that was a top 5 defense the last 8 games last year. So they're definitely not hitting the reset button and just blowing everything up, even though it seems like it with Geno Smith and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett all being sent out the door. But what it boiled down to is Geno Smith wanted $45 million per year, and the Seahawks were not willing to do that. They gave an offer. Geno Smith and his reps didn't even give a counter offer. And John Schneider just came to the quick realization, I don't have time to wait for this. So I'm going to move you to go back with Pete Carroll in Vegas, and we're going to shift our attention to Sam Darnold, who we've caught wind is maybe going to be more affordable than we thought he was going to be. And it ends up being $10 million roughly less per year than what the Seahawks would have had to pay Geno Smith on a new contract for a player that did throw 35 touchdown passes for the Minnesota Vikings last year and has familiarity with a very similar system that Clint Kubiak is going to be running now in Seattle.
I think if you're a cynic here, you're going, okay, but in Minnesota, Sam Darnold had a pretty good offensive line. He had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and you just shipped off DK Metcalf, Seahawks front office. So can you please go fix the offensive line and maybe find us a playmaker? Is that still something you see as in the cards here for Seattle? Is that going to be a priority? What's next here?
They have to. They have no choice, because without DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, this is not a team that's going to be able to sling it 45, 50 times a game. And Sam Darnold is not the quarterback to do that with anyway. They've got to improve that offensive line, and there's still a lot of good guards out there on the market right now. Josh Schneider's got a lot of cap space to spend with. There's no excuse. For the last 15 years, he hasn't spent on the offensive line. You have got to spend money to get that interior in particular shored up so that you can run the football. If you want Sam Darnold to be successful, Minnesota didn't have the best run game, but it was good enough to be respected, and they ran the living daylights out of play action off of it. And Sam Darnold was amazing on play action. League high 16 touchdown passes on play action passes last year. So that is the blueprint. The personnel's not there to do it right now, though. So if you want him to be successful in this contract, you got to get the personnel set up and get him a few more receivers. I'm confident John Schneider will be able to do that. The offensive line is where the biggest question mark always will be with this regime.
There are some questions, too, I think, about Jackson Smith-Njigba here, because they move on from DK Metcalf. They don't want to pay the money. Part of that is you and I have talked about a number of times on this show, on my show, that Jackson Smith-Njigba has become their number one target. That being said, there is really just this last season of evidence. He is someone who works well from the slot, and Clint Kubiak wants to play more 2 receiver sets. This is straight from your mouth. Can he succeed as the number one option as a boundary receiver in this version of the offense with Sam Darnold?
He absolutely can. And here's the thing. He is more than capable of doing damage on the boundary. They didn't have to have him do that the last couple of years because of the presence of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. But sure, he is more than capable of being moved all over the formation and doing a lot of damage. And he was the number one receiver the last 9 or 10 games last year. So this is not going to be an adjustment for him. I mean, Sam Darnold's going to be funneling in targets to him if they don't get better receivers behind him. There's no question about it. But he is a high-volume receiver already. I don't see this being an issue at all. Clint Kubiak has always been able to accentuate his top receivers as well.
All right, quickly here at the top of the draft, number 18th overall selection, Seattle Seahawks, dream pick that is reasonable.
I would say that it would have to be either an offensive lineman or now a receiver. I could see Luther Burden III from Missouri being a player they're very interested in, or they could go a different direction and potentially draft one of the young Texas receivers. Matthew Golden is a speedster that would help make up for DK Metcalf being gone. But I think receiver now is very much in the mix for first round.
You can stay up to date all year on the Seattle Seahawks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Seahawks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Jets got their quarterback as legal tampering began in the NFL. We'll go around the league for all the moves that happened on Monday. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. There's always some underdogs to play. FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, game props, and more. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to find. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. And with conference tournament season in full swing, you could turn that $5 into $200 in bonus bets tonight. The Big 12 tournament tips off with Kansas State facing Arizona State. K-State favored by 5.5, according to FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. We'll get to all the legal tampering news in a moment, but first, there were a few games to know about in the NBA last night, like the Nuggets trying to close the gap with the Thunder.
They're never going to be any good teams. They're just not that good. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray go off, and when they shoot like hell, like absolute fire, this is going to be like
140, 127, and all they had to do was shoot 18 of 32 from 3-point range and 61% from the field.
Approved.
But they did so versus the number one defense in the NBA, one of the best defensive teams that we've ever seen.
And the Hawks kept the Sixers at arm's length from a spot in the play-in.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Rowland. The Atlanta Hawks get a nice victory, taking care of business at home on this Monday. It was not the best game in the history of the NBA. A lot of guys out. Philadelphia super banged up right now, obviously. No Joel Embiid, no Tyrese Maxey, no Kelly Oubre, no Paul George, any of those guys. And the Hawks, though, were without Trae Young in this game as well, in addition to Karis LeVert and, of course, Jalen Johnson being out for the season. And the Hawks led comfortably most of the way. It got a little bit dicey in the final minutes, but a very nice, balanced offensive performance from the Hawks. 6 guys, 14 points or more, led by Zachary Richichet and Dyson Daniels. It wasn't pretty, but the Hawks did enough offensively to win a game they were supposed to win. And in the NBA, occasionally that's not always as easy as it seems, but the Hawks get this win. That's actually 3 in a row for the Hawks, 4 of the last 5, and they stay in the 7th spot in the Eastern Conference. We'll get into all of that and more on the Hawks Podcast.
And a little baseball for you. Garrett Cole will have Tommy John surgery and miss the entirety of the 2025 New York Yankees season.
This is the absolute worst. This is nightmare scenario. This is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it puts their World Series chances. I mean,
they're done. There's no way.
in the gutter. In the gutter. No, I hate to be that guy, and I don't want to be the guy that's calling season over in the middle of the year. But I mean, you're not winning a championship without the best pitcher in baseball. You're not. I mean,
you're not even winning the AL East without him too.
Yeah, the 2 injuries you couldn't afford were Cole or Judge, and you have one of them.
Legal tampering began in the NFL on Monday, and the Jets replaced Aaron Rodgers with Justin Fields.
The New York Jets have their quarterback. I'm John, the host of Locked On Jets, and on the first day of free agency in the NFL, the New York Jets have addressed their biggest need, signing quarterback Justin Fields to a 2-year contract worth $40 million. There's been a lot of buzz growing over the last couple of weeks about Fields potentially joining the Jets. It's a match that makes a lot of sense. Fields' career has not gone how he's hoped it would. Struggles through his 3 years in Chicago, a year in Pittsburgh where he was unable to beat out Russell Wilson for the starting job, but still plenty of natural ability. And the Jets need a quarterback. There's probably no quarterback out there with more upside than Fields. The Jets can design an offense around his strengths, including incorporating his ability as a runner. There's no guarantees that this will work, but this was probably the best option in front of the Jets. For more on the Jets, tune into the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. New episodes every Monday through Friday, your team every day.
Meanwhile, the Patriots improved their interior defensive line among a flurry of Monday moves. Former Eagles defensive tackle Milton Williams signed a 4-year mega deal with New England.
Over the past 48 hours, the New England Patriots have bolstered their defense at every level, and they chose wisely by not forgetting the secondary. I'm Mike DeBate, host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, and the signing of Milton Williams may have earned galactic headlines, but the Pats signing of cornerback Carlton Davis might actually be equally as important to their defensive backfield. The Pats struggled to cover multiple receiver sets in 2024. That's because they did not have a dedicated presence opposite All-Pro Christian Gonzalez. They won't have that problem this season. In coming over from the Detroit Lions, Carlton Davis is very familiar with Terrell Williams, the new defensive coordinator in New England, and his aggressive style of defense. That means he should continue to excel playing in man coverage. Davis had one of the highest rates of man coverage in the NFL last season. Now that he's going to be aligning as the Pats' primary number 2 option, should have no problem adding to his 2 interceptions and 11 pass breakups, which he compiled in an injury-shortened campaign last year.
The Broncos added to their defense, signing Dre Greenlaw.
Really good start for the Denver Broncos in NFL free agency. They're dipping into the NFC West to add 2 former San Francisco 49ers. This is Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos, and the Broncos' latest San Francisco 49er addition, Dre Greenlaw, linebacker. He is now coming to the Broncos on a 3-year deal worth $35 million. Greenlaw, highly athletic, has a lot of tools that'll pair well inside of Vance Joseph's defense here in Denver. And obviously, the Broncos signed earlier in the day his teammate Talanoa Hufanga at the safety position. Broncos bolster 2 of their biggest needs defensively, while also bringing back DJ Jones, who, ironically enough, used to be their former teammates in San Francisco. So the Broncos in a good position right now. Evan Ingram still visiting in the building on Monday. If the Broncos find a way to come away with him, that is icing on the cake for what would have been a very good day of free agency here for the Mile High City. Make sure you check out Locked On Broncos from wherever you get your podcast.
And the New Orleans Saints brought Chase Young back on a 3-year deal.
The New Orleans Saints just keep building their trenches. I'm Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast. New Orleans Saints re-signing Chase Young to a 3-year deal. But I don't care about the money. I don't care about the terms. What I care about is the role. Chase Young had 5.5 sacks last season. Not the season that you necessarily expected from him, as he played through 17 total games, but had 73 total pressures, number 6 in the NFL last season. What I want to know is if in Brandon Staley's defense, Chase Young can be the terror that he was expected to be in the NFL when drafted number 2 overall by the Washington Commanders back in 2020. He is only 25 years old, turns 26 next year. Can the New Orleans Saints get the absolute best out of Chase Young during 3 prime years of his career before he heads back to the market at age 28 as a stand-up pass rusher in a 3-4 Brandon Staley defense? That could be the case.
You can stay up to date all year on the NFL by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On NFL on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, why do we do this to ourselves when it comes to the NBA MVP? It's a long season in the NBA. There are 82 games that decide a lot of things, yet some people will let a few games late in the season determine their voting for MVP. As Locked On NBA host Matt Moore asks Hayes and Doug Branson, why do we let this happen?
You know what's funny is, like, these 2 teams played twice in October and November. Does anybody remember that when they're voting for it? No. But if you play in March, these head-to-head battles determines the MVP. It does matter because a lot of the voters don't think about this the way that they should. Like, I don't pretend to know everything, but this does not take a lot of self-examination to be like, it's an award based on 82 games. Maybe we shouldn't take 2 heads-up matchups in March without Aaron Gordon, who injured his calf in OKC, both on the road, one on a back-to-back, as definitive proof of the MVP. Maybe we should just look at the 82 games. No, let's just have it be heads-up, and then whoever wins, Hayes.
Yeah, I don't know how to get past that either. Like, recency bias does absolutely play a part in it. Like, and it's kind of this unspoken thing. Well, I guess we're speaking about it now, so can we say it's unspoken? That just happens. This is part of the voting. Like, how you finish the season strong, especially in head-to-head matchups. I think it does impact voters. And Matt makes a great point. It's about an 82-game season, and I mean, I don't know how you can avoid it, but if they lose tonight, especially if Shea drops another 40-piece, which, by the way, Shea, like, no more we got the DoorDash special. Drop 50. I need 50. No more 40 pieces. Go out there and get the 50.
Matt's right, of course, that they did play 2 earlier games in the season, but guess what? None of those games matter for anything right now. These games actually matter more. The Nuggets and the Thunder are in a playoff race. Now, no one's going to catch Oklahoma City, but the Nuggets are fighting for everything they have. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander vastly outplays Nikola Jokic twice, back-to-back nights in monster games, at least for the Nuggets, that can and should influence the outcome. It's not just 2 games. And we've always valued the way that stars play against stars and stars play against the best teams. We've always valued that more than if they put up 50 against the Raptors on a Tuesday night in November. These games do matter more. And oh, by the way, Jokic had 35, 18, and 8 in a win. And so, okay, well, they split. So now nothing? No, the games matter, and they matter more. And that's because they actually matter more in the standings to these teams. They should matter more in the MVP. And finally, you have to wonder who approves the ideas for new baseball hats at New Era. A recent alternative style puts either the city name or the team nickname on a cap and then puts the team logo over it, covering up one of the letters. Okay. Seems like a fine thing. That caused a problem for the Rangers, though. They had to issue an apology and remove the hat from the team web store. The letter X in Texas was covered up by the Rangers T logo, making it look like a word in Spanish referring to a woman's breasts. No one thought to check that. Come on. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what surprises will the new NFL year bring? Not much left to happen, honestly. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.